This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what have we got exciting that's coming up in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hannes, in this week's episode, we're going to meet Richard Freeman once again, and he's going to explain all about his forthcoming trip to Sumatra and how you can help.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and welcome to...
Stop it, stop it, stop it! We've just had a message from Computer Boy.
Don't call me Computer Boy!
He says that we need to be more approachable for young people in order to make the algorithm happy. All hail to the algorithm! And so, he says, you speak too slowly and you've got to simplify things to make it easier to understand. And you need to update your image to make it more modern.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Forestry and Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. And now I would like to introduce you to our special guest, Miss Yoni Egg, the famous VTuber, with her tribute to the UK subs.
There's a burning sun, and it's setting in the western world. It rises in the east, and pretty soon it's going to burn your temples down. Warhead, warhead, warhead,
And yes, of course I'm being silly. I'm never going to do anything like that. That would be even more ridiculous than what we normally do. But it is something that I find ever more irritating in the world, that we have to dumb things down, speed things up, and explain things to people as if they really were stupid, rather than being the intelligent people I still believe that most people are. So I'm not going to dumb things down, speed things up, or be stupid, or no more stupid than normal in this show. It's going to remain a show about hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And if you don't know what surreality is, I think you've missed the boat this week. Because this week I want to introduce you to my old friend Richard Freeman, who is putting together the beginning stages of the next CFZ expedition to Sumatra, and we want to tell you all about it and how you can help. So, Richard, I notice that the lovely Guinevere has put up a GoFundMe for us. Tell me all about it. What's it about?
It's to raise money for our 7th trip to Sumatra in search of the orang Pendek. The last one we did a couple of years ago, we came to within 20 feet of it. I heard it calling from behind a stand of bamboo. I was 20 feet away, and I waited while another member of the expedition tried to frighten it round to me so I could film it, but it ran at a different angle into the jungle, so I didn't catch sight of it. So if I could have had that time over again, I would have just switched my camera on and ran behind that stand of bamboo, because I would have probably caught the orang pendek on film. It's the closest I've ever been to it. So we're wanting to go back with Dali and Christopher Killian, the French filmmaker, who will be making a documentary about it, and a couple of other Brits. Go back with Dali and go this time go deeper into the rainforest and see if we can catch the orang pendek on film.
You're planning to take your mate Jamie, aren't you?
Yes, my friend Jamie, he's always wanted to come on a CFZ expedition, and every time he's wanted to come, something's happened, either at his end or our end, to prevent him. So yeah, we want to take him along.
Tell me more about Jamie. I've never met him.
Jamie's real name is Mohammed Bulla. He's an old friend of mine I've known through Doctor Who fandom, for over 25 years.
That's brilliant. And what's his particular interest in expedition?
He's just very interested in cryptozoology and travel in general. He's always wanted to travel, but the furthest afield he's been is Greece. But he's had wanderlust like me. He's always wanted to come on these expeditions and never quite managed it.
Are you going to the same area that you went to last time when you nearly saw the orang pendek and you did get film of that tiger?
We'll be flexible. We'd ask Dali where the most recent sightings have been, the most recent credible sightings, and we'd go there.
Are you planning to do anything different from the way you've done it before?
I think we would be wanting to spend more time in the deep jungle than we did last time. I mean, on other occasions, we've been in the deep jungle for a long time, but the last time we were there, we were sort of on the outskirts of the jungle.
Is this the area that you've told me is called the garden?
Yes, hello, yes. Yeah, the semi-cultivated area that's known as the garden. Hopefully, this time we'll be able to go deeper into and spend longer into deep, thick rainforest, because that's where you're going to find it.
I heard, and I think it was from you, that these creatures come out and raid the gardens quite regularly.
They do from time to time, which is why we've been camping in these semi-cultivated areas. But every time we've been close to it, we've heard it call, and the time Dave Archer saw one, it was deep in the forest.
Does that mean you're likely to be going back up to the lake again?
I don't know. According to Dali, there haven't been any sightings around there recently. And the other thing is, the authorities have cottoned on to Westerners being interested in the orang pendek around Gunung Tuju. So they charge you through the nose for going into the park, and they charge you more for using cameras.
But you can get away with it if it's not in the national park itself.
Yeah.
It's sad the way that everything gets monetized.
It is, very much so.
Science should be free to everybody.
It should.
So, after you've done this 6 times already, how are you going to use what you've learned from the first 6 expeditions on the forthcoming one?
Well, we know what it sounds like. We know its call. So if we hear it in the jungle, we'll know that it's close to us. We know what its tracks look like, both the footprints and the handprints. And we'll be using camera traps again and probably baiting them with fruit like durian.
Have you ever tried to talk to it, as you know what its call sounds like? Have you ever tried to call to it?
I've imitated the call up at Gunung Tuju. There are several different calls. I imitated a long distance call that they do, but nothing answered.
Oh, that's a pity. So when are you planning for this expedition to take place?
That's very much up in the air. It all depends on how much funding we get and when. It would be outside of the rainy season, obviously. So we wouldn't be going in the rainy season.
Which is
We
when?
now you've asked me, I can't remember without looking. But there are 2 rainy seasons and 2 dry seasons, and I can't remember when they are without actually looking. But you don't want to go in the rainy season because the roads will be awful. It'll be chucking down every time you step out of your tent. You want to go in the dry season.
It'd be muddy as hell as well.
Yeah, I've been in the rainy season, and I don't want to go back again in the rainy season.
So, Richard, what is it that attracts you back to Sumatra again and again?
The fact that, along with the Tasmanian wolf, the orang pendek is the cryptid most likely to exist. I came very close to seeing it. I've heard it calling. I've found its tracks. I've found its hair. I know it exists, and it's about that far away from being proven. So I like to concentrate on the things that I think we have a good chance of finding, filming, and proving. And the Tasmanian wolf and the orang pendek are at the top of that list.
So, what would be the item of evidence which would be, right, there, we've done it, job done? What do you need?
If we could find remains, if we could find a skull, that would be amazing because you'd have the dental formula, you'd have the shape of the skull, which would be different to other orangs. And also, in the tooth pulp, you could get nuclear DNA from it.
Nuclear.
I beg your pardon, mitochondrial DNA from the tooth pulp. And that job done. If you can do that, job done.
What about hairs? Wouldn't they be able to contain mitochondrial DNA?
If they had the little bulb at the end with the tissue on it, but if it's just hair without that, DNA is very difficult to get from it. So you'd have to go on structure, on hair structure. And of course, Lars Thomas, our friend Lars Thomas, who's the expert in, one of the world's leading experts in mammal hair, looked at some hair we brought back before, and he said that it is related to but distinct from the Sumatran orangutan. So it seems that the orang pendek is a ground-dwelling, upright walking orangutan, the 4th extant species of orangutan. And we shouldn't be too surprised about that because the Tapanuli orangutan was only proven to exist in 2017.
I remember you telling me that although dentition is one of the biggest ways of being able to identify mammals, that the dentition of the 3 known recognized species of orangutan is very, very
Very
close.
simple.
It's very, very similar. But with the orang pendek walking upright, presumably its skull and then probably its dentition and its jaws would be a different shape.
Certainly the skull and the jaws would be a different shape. The tooth formula may be the same, although the shape might be different.
Because walking upright, for one thing, that's going to change the whole physiology of the whole animal, isn't it?
Mm.
The
shape of the lower jaw, and where the spine affixes to the skull.
Is it the Bornean orangutan that walks upright more than the Sumatran one?
No,
Or is
no.
it
In the Bornean, the male and the female, when they are the rare times they come down to the forest floor, they walk on all 4s. The Sumatran orangutan, the male walks upright when it's on the ground, the female walks on all 4s. But the male, when you see them walk, it's an odd sort of swaying, awkward-looking walk because their ankles are twisted round like that, so they walk on the edges of their feet because their ankles are twisted so the feet can grasp branches and tree trunks because they're arboreal. Whereas the orang pendek, its ankle is like ours, it's flat. It walks flat-footedly.
What makes you think that? No, let me change that. What makes you believe that the orang pendek is actually a hyper-specialized unknown species of orangutan?
Large is an artist of the hair.
Is it generally thought of within those people of the scientific community who actually believe in the orang pendek? Is it generally agreed that it is probably an orangutan of some species?
Some think it's an orangutan, and some think it's something that is between the gibbons and the orang.
I must admit, when I was younger, I thought it was going to be a gibbon of some sort rather than an orangutan. But
So did I. I thought it was an enormous terrestrial gibbon, but the evidence is pointing more towards the orangutan now.
I know there are orangutans known from the fossil record in mainland Asia and in the Philippines. Are any of the upright walking, are any of those known from the physiology to have been upright walking? Golly, getting my tenses right in that sentence was not easy.
Well, there was a large gorilla-sized orangutan, Pongo hujiri, I think its Latin name was, that walked on all fours like a gorilla. And of course, we've got Gigantopithecus, which is only known from jaws and teeth. The court is still out on whether that was a biped or a knuckle walker. But orangs survived until very recently on the mainland, much more recently than was at first thought, well into the Holocene, a few thousand years ago. And I met a man once who claimed to have seen an orangutan on mainland Asia on the Malayan Peninsula. Now that could have been an escaped individual, or it could have been part of a relic population.
Tell me about his account.
It was 20 years ago. You remember when I went to film with Animal X about the Pembroke Dock sea serpent?
Yeah.
I was on a train to Pembroke and I just got talking to this old man who was sitting next to me, and he had these tattoos on the palms of his hands, and I asked him where he got them, and he said he was in Malaya. He got them in Malaya. And he'd been out there. He was the last of the people to do national service, the last generation of national service. And he was telling me stories about when he was in Malaya and this insane sergeant major he had who was actually locked up for being mad. And he made one guy climb up a tree and made another guy cut the tree down with an axe while singing Rockabye Baby. And but he told me about this huge python they'd come across, and then he said he'd seen an orangutan. And I had to explain to him orangutans were supposed to be extinct in mainland Asia, but he told me he'd seen this thing in the jungle. He said he didn't see the face. He said it was as big as him, covered with long ginger hair, long arms, and it was in the trees, moving in the trees. And the local man he was with told him it was an orangutan.
Well, of course, there's Clint Keeling's story, wasn't there, about somebody who saw
a big moonkey, great big moonkey in Malaya. That was a Yorkshireman who was talking about this zoo, and he said, "Are they going to have any monkeys at this zoo?" And I nearly shot a big monkey in Malaya. And Clint asked him, "Oh, how big?" And he said, "Oh, this tall," and he indicated it was about 5 feet tall. And Clint tried to catch him out, and he said, "Oh, I think I know the one. It has a long tail, doesn't it?" He said, "Oh, no, It didn't have a tail. It was a big moon kit. And they said there were two of them together, upright, long hair and running together. So whatever that was, it sounds like orang pendek.
Yeah,
And
so I was thinking that.
there are mainland accounts of creatures that sound similar to orang pendek. There are accounts from Borneo, but they're much rarer. There are accounts from Malaya of both a big Yeti-like creature and a smaller one. And then up in the Himalayas, there are three distinct types of Yeti in the Himalayas and Tibet. And the smaller one sounds very similar to orang pendek. So it could be something related to orang pendek. It wouldn't be the same species, but it'd be something closely related.
And I believe there are accounts of orangutans in the Philippines, although I know very, very little about it. Do you know?
I've not heard. I've not heard. I've not heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me. But you'd have to ask: are the relic populations of the prehistoric ones, or are they escaped from captivity and living happily in the wild?
Well, you remember my mate Jan Scarf,
Yes, I was thinking about him the other day. I haven't seen or heard from him in years.
because I hear from him occasionally. He's working for the Sultan of Oman.
Suppose when something goes wrong out there, they go, "Oh man."
Dear, 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 dear. We're doing very, very well. We've got 9 minutes left on this one. He lived in Malaya because he's a bit older than me, and I'm 64. So he's a couple of years older than me. He lived in Malaya in the late 50s, early 60s, when it was a British colony. And he had a pet orangutan because apparently they were sold quite regularly in the local markets and people had them for pets. And so that could be a origin story for why there are moon keys on mainland Malaya, that they are escaped pets if they're that regularly kept.
Not as exciting as the idea of a relic population of prehistoric orangs, but it's the more likely solution.
Yes, it's very much more likely. So, what is the thing you want to achieve most with this expedition?
I want to get a good long look at orang pendek. I want to catch it on film, and I want to get some genetic material. It would be like winning the lottery if we could find a skull. But getting a good clear film of it would be brilliant.
And the skull, presumably, the only way you'd find one's from a tiger kill or a leopard.
There are no leopards in Sumatra. There are clouded leopards, but there are no true leopards.
Aren't there? There are leopards on Java.
There's leopards on Java, but there are none on Sumatra.
Didn't know that. I just assumed.
Not on Borneo either.
I didn't know that. I just assumed there were leopards all over that area.
Borneo and Sumatra have the clouded leopard, but not the true leopard.
So, when do you plan to go?
We don't know yet. It all depends on funding, how much funding we get, when Delhi's free, things like that. So it might not be until next year.
And what time of year will you go?
When it's not in the rainy season. There are two rainy seasons.
And the rainy seasons are?
I can't remember without looking. But there are two of them. And when I go these days, I always go online, check when the rainy seasons are, and book outside of the rainy season, because the rainy season in Sumatra is a nightmare. I remember once we were in a minibus coming back from Gunung Tuju along the mountain roads, and behind us there was a guy on a motorbike, and it was absolutely pouring down. and a literally 20-foot section of road fell away and took the motorbike and this 20-foot section of road thundering hundreds of feet down the mountain. He just managed to leap off the motorbike in time.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
They might be thinking about visiting the south. Well, there's things you need to know. The south might seem quaint, but remember, in the south, they drink shandy. They keep cats. They vote Tory. They go to focus groups. They go to wine bars. They're as soft as shite. So if you visit the south, remember, think once, think twice, think soft as shite.
That was a public information film.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. That's about it for this episode. I want to say a big thank you to my guest this week, who's been Richard Freeman. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to my producer, Louis, who's currently gallivanting somewhere in the new world dressed as Uncle Sam and wearing a big hat, a bit like Charlie Watts did on the cover of Get Your Yah-Yahs Out. I could say Get Your Louis Out, but that would sound very strange. I'm going to be back on Saturday. What am I talking about on Saturday? Well, we have Richard again, and we're going to be talking about the contents of his new book, which is called The Highest Strangeness.
And you're going to be watching Mr. McCrillen?
Because if you're going to be there, Mr. McCrillen, and I'm going to be there doing the stuff I do, the notifications and the live chat and everything, then no doubt I shall be seeing you. Bingo.